This is Matthew Cratter from Trader University, and today I want to talk a little bit about Bitcoin, citadels, and freedom. In order to understand this, we have to understand the difference between centralization and decentralization. Centralization is always very fragile. If you're completely dependent on Amazon for everything that you order or buy, you have a fragile situation. Amazon goes down, you can't order anything. Also, similar situation we experienced during the pandemic. If all your masks, your pharmaceuticals are just made in a few countries, you are also highly dependent. It's a fragile system. By contrast, decentralization tends to be much more anti-fragile, to use Nassim Taleb's word, much more robust, much more difficult to bring down. The other problem with centralization is that it allows governments and corporations to control you, to control the population, both physically and mentally. If you're dependent on the government for stimmy checks or food or housing, etc. Also, to the extent the government controls what shows up on your screen, and also large tech corporations, certain things are never allowed to show up on your Facebook page or Twitter feed. A lot of very interesting things too that I'm not able to post even on YouTube here. We all know at this point that US tech, the US banking system, US government are all in bed together. These are very centralized systems that are working together to increase control over the population. Meanwhile, there are international organizations that are trying to increase global control. The problem with centralized systems, of course, is they always end up getting captured. If you have a very well-run centralized system, there's a good chance that someone will come in who's not a nice person and control it. So that's a problem with centralized systems. Very easy to get captured. They're also not very anti-fragile or robust. This is the sort of world we're rapidly trending towards, where you'll own nothing. Other people, your rich overlords, will own everything, and you will have to have subscriptions for everything, for your housing, for your food, etc. These are the elites that want to control us, and there's the obviously large big tech elites, and then we have the new elites who are operating through centralized currencies like Ethereum. So you can choose your master here. If you choose Bitcoin, though, you won't have to see one of these faces. We don't even know what Satoshi look like. If you're finding this video helpful so far, please hit that subscribe and like button. Also share the video with a few friends. Now, the worst form of centralization is the centralization of money. This is what we've been suffering under since at least 1913 in the U.S. when the Federal Reserve was set up, the central bank. What's coming down the pike is even worse. CBDCs, which we've talked about, central bank digital currencies. You can think of them, a much better moniker is SPY coins. These will replace cash. They will be the foundation for everything, including your credit card or your Apple Pay transactions. And as a result, the government will know about every single dollar that you own, and also every single dollar that you spend. They already know a lot of this from your cell phone, obviously from your smartphone, but there'll be even less privacy. Government will know your location, your travel plans, what you like to buy online and in real life, and there'll be real-time tracking and monitoring by the central bank and by the federal government. We already have this to a large extent through large tech companies, but it's even worse when you have the actual government or the central bank doing it. The solution to centralized systems is decentralized systems. This is one reason I'm such a fan of Bitcoin and not a fan of other cryptocurrencies, which tend to be very centralized. So if we can move to these decentralized systems, Bitcoin is decentralized money. There's no one who can print more of it. There's no one in control of Bitcoin. Private gun ownership, Second Amendment rights in the US, is a very important form of decentralization. This is decentralized defense. Countries, towns, cities where there's high gun ownership, high private gun ownership, have much lower crime rates. This is very well known. Decentralized energy is another way of achieving decentralization. Solar, wind, hydropower, if you have a stream in your backyard, for example. Decentralized food production. We're reaching the point where very simple things such as a large internet outage or an EMP that wipes out all the semiconductors, for example, we could have global starvation. This is why it's important to have decentralized food production as well, to maybe have your own garden, your own greenhouse, etc. And of course, decentralized water. You don't want to be dependent on what people decide to put in your water. So wells, rainwater collection, streams, ponds, lakes. These are all decentralized systems. These are very robust. And to the extent you can move your life towards decentralized systems, I think it's going to make surviving the coming decade much easier. This was the original model in the US. We have a fairly decentralized government structure. We have the three branches of government. We have states' rights, and there's this tension. There was no central point of failure as there is in a monarchy. The U.S. government was very small in the beginning, and there's obviously the huge emphasis on states' rights. There were no large corporations, no huge lobbying groups, and the bankers were kept under control, and there wasn't the same centralized ownership of the banks. In terms of livelihood and businesses, it's a patchwork of farmers, gentlemen farmers, small business owners, the candlestick maker, the tailor, etc. And I believe this is a much better model. It's a much more robust and anti-fragile model. And I think the Bitcoin Citadel really fulfills this promise. You've probably heard about Bitcoin Citadels. There's a lot of interesting fantasy going on online. This is a great Twitter account to follow, Bitcoin Citadels, where you can see lots of pictures of what a Bitcoin Citadel might look like. And we could imagine a world where we have this sort of patchwork of Bitcoin Citadels, where everyone has their own defense, everyone has their own food and water production, and everyone uses Bitcoin as the neutral bearer asset, as the most neutral and secure form of money. And these Bitcoin Citadels can take many forms. They can be farms. They can be mountain houses where you're dependent on your food for hunting and fishing. There's lots of medieval and Renaissance examples of this, of course, especially from Europe. Very beautiful structures back when the world was on a gold standard and we didn't have ugly construction and fiat money ruling everything. This can take the form of very simple homesteads with gardens and cows and other livestock, or it can take the 21st century form of actually floating systems somewhere, either around a planet or around a moon or around an asteroid or a space station that is just on its own. So I want you to think about this. Think about the trade-offs between centralization and decentralization. And when you choose your money, this is the reason that Bitcoin has such a future. There's no other currency that's as decentralized. This is the kind of future that I'd like my children to live in, something that's much more robust, anti-fragile, much less centralized. And that's one of the reasons for this YouTube channel, and one of the reasons I'm so focused on Bitcoin. So check out these Bitcoin Citadels. It's a nice thing to scroll through on the weekend. And especially if you believe, as I do, that we're entering the fourth turning here. We've probably been in it for a few years. This is going to be a very volatile and turbulent decade. I think to the extent that you can incorporate these decentralized systems, whether it's gun ownership, Bitcoin, decentralized energy and food and water production, to the extent you can incorporate these in your own life, you will be much more secure in the coming decade, which promises to be very volatile. And I think we see something similar to what we've seen at previous fourth turnings. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.